This is a 2011 GMC Acadia, and the transmission has failed. I'm assuming that the wave plate, which is a common failure, went bad in this transmission quite some time ago, and it's gotten to the point where the vehicle's pretty much inoperable at this point. I considered replacing the wave plate and the transmission, but this vehicle has 200,000 miles on it, so we just went ahead and bought a used transmission with 100,000 miles, and I am going to replace that. So let's go ahead and get started. Underneath the Acadia, I disconnected the exhaust. I pulled the cats off. One right there, right there, right there. I pulled that whole assembly off as one. I pulled that cross member right there off so that I could get the exhaust off. I pulled the passenger side axle over here on the floor. Driver side axle, airbox. Trying to think anything else I got. I disconnected the struts from the knuckle. On the last one I was changing the engine, so I left all that together, but on this one I needed to remove the axle shafts. So once this whole unit is on the floor, I can remove the transmission without having to do it then. So I did it a little bit differently this time. And then I unhooked the sway bar link from the sway bar. I unplugged the wire for the ABS sensor on both sides. I removed all the bell housing bolts I could get at from down here. I didn't get any of the torque converter bolts yet because I gotta get them through the starter, the hole for the starter, and it's just a bugger to get that. So I'm gonna wait till I get the powertrain down, and I'll take this converter off right here so I can get the starter out easier, and I'll get in there. I did disconnect the you can't see up in there, but I disconnected the steering shaft for the steering gear, the rack and pinion. So I'm thinking I also had this car has rear heat. You can see the extra AC lines and heater lines, rear heat, rear AC. I disconnected the lines from the engine, the ones that are attached to the body anyway, and I'll lower the car down and I'll show you what I did underneath the hood. Underneath the hood, I left the harness on the engine as much as I could. Most of it you can disconnect from everything else. This one piece, this is the end of the harness that goes into the fuse block. I mean, they got connectors everywhere else. I don't know why they wouldn't have a connector here so you don't have to take that fuse box apart. But if you pry the bottom of it off, there's two halves and it hooks in right here. There's just two halves. There's a little tab that separates the two. There's the other half right there. So I unhooked that. The rest of that harness is hooked to the engine. I'm not taking the engine out. I don't need to disassemble that. The last one I did, I unhooked everything off the engine, and it was a pain. Obviously the airbox is gone. We got refrigerant lines for the AC. The harness down here that hooks into your ABS module. Couple grounds. Anything that's attached to the engine and the firewall or the core support has to come off. And I think I'm about ready to start dropping this out of the car. We'll see if I forgot anything. Just got to undo this mount. There's two bolts right here and right there for this mount. And what I'm going to do is I'll put jack stands underneath the subframe and lower it down on the jack stands and pull the bolts out and slowly raise the body of the car up off the whole powertrain. Everything will stay on the ground. So we'll see how that goes here. Just want to show you guys real quick here. Again, I pulled this out because I had to change the transmission, which I've done. The old transmission is over there on the floor. These vehicles, they don't give you a provision for taking the for accessing the torque converter bolts. You actually have to remove the starter and get them through the hole that the starter goes into. But to comfortably remove the starter, you got to pull the converter off here. Here's the converter right here. So with that there, I mean, there's just no way to get at it. So you pull that out, and then there is a knock sensor right here. You can see the bolt. It's a 13 millimeter right there, and that's the knock sensor. If you try to take the starter out without pulling that knock sensor off, you're going to hate yourself, and you'll probably break the knock sensor. Pull that 13 millimeter bolt out, and that'll provide just enough room for you to get the starter, to get the nose of the starter back out of the bell housing. And again, and that's how you get at the bolts. It's absolutely sealed down here. There's nothing down here. I think it's kind of stupid the way they manufacture the vehicles, but this is the procedure for servicing the transmission. You have to pull the whole thing down as an assembly. As a little preventative maintenance, while I had it out, I decided to go ahead and replace that water pump, just because it's so easy to do right now. I mean, it's absolutely simple. When it's in the car, it is not anything close to simple. And this car is 200,000. Well, this engine is 200,000 miles on it, and I figured it's before I put this thing back together, I'm going to at least sell them a new water pump and a new serpentine belt while we're there, because the serpentine belt can be installed now. And it just stays on. You don't have to mess with it when it's in the car. And when it's in the car, it is tight, because this right here is the mount. I mean, there's a bracket right here. I mean, there's just no room to get in here. So putting it back together. I'm hoping to have this thing back in and running probably within a few hours anyway. So. One of the issues you might run into doing this job is the cradle gets moved around quite a bit when it's on the ground. I use jacks and the cherry picker to lift the trans up off of it, and in the process I moved the cradle probably about 6 inches out of the way. So when you go to lower the car down, it doesn't line back up. And it's kind of difficult to move because it's so heavy. So what I do, and I don't do it often because I don't do these jobs often, is get a long extension or pry bar, or if you have a plumb bob would work even better. Put that out of the way. Lower the car down so it's close, and stick your, well, in my case I'm using a ratchet. Stick it in the hole and let it find center. And you can see the cradle's about an inch back for that one. And go all the way around and just make minor adjustments to the position of the cradle on the floor, so when you go to lower the car all the way down, it lines up and you don't have to fight it as much. Just be careful you don't knock it off the jack stand. Because I did that. Off camera though. That doesn't count, right? Really close right there. Okay, I think we're there. Let's Let's see if we can put this thing together. Almost there. cradle is in. If you have a friend, get a helper. It's a lot easier, but it can be done by yourself. Okay, I'm going to take a break and then we'll hook everything up and start it up.